right.
Yeah, I'm very good. How's your quarantine break going?
Oh, it's going great.
It's going great. Are you sure about that?
Oh, it is. It's going wonderful.
Use your mic.
Can you hear me? Is that good? All right. Well, let's kick it off with the questions.
All right, I'm ready.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you decided to go to a Christian school?
Well, my sister, my younger sister, had actually gone first, and because she had gone for a couple of years, my parents came to me and asked me about going, and it was between my junior and senior year, and I was very hesitant at first. I didn't want to leave the school I'd been going to since I was in grade school, and with the friends that I'd been going to school with, but I just felt like it was the right thing. I didn't think at that time in my life that I was with a good crowd of kids, a group, good influence in my life, and so I made the decision to go to Christian school my senior year.
That's good. What sparked ignited inside of you when you took over the head of the best ministry, and what has helped you to keep going?
Well, when I came to House Anderson, the very first weekend that I was in college, I got on a Chicago bus route, and I was very unfamiliar with the ministry. I didn't come from a church that had a bus ministry, and so it was very enlightening. I'd never been to a city like Chicago. I lived about an hour south of Boston, but Chicago was different, and it was just, I found it very intriguing, the fact that our church would have a ministry that would go into the inner city and reach people for Christ. And I was just overwhelmed, excited. I loved it the very first weekend. I remember it like it was yesterday, and though it was more than 30 years ago, but it was just it was a great experience for me. And through that, my love for the bus ministry, and it's just, I just stayed in it, became a bus captain while I was in college. And then after I graduated, Brother Ray Young, who was the bus director at that time, hired me to work on staff and be his assistant. So I was the assistant bus director for about 12 years. And then when Brother Hiles passed away, Brother Young was moved to the college to be out there full time. And that's when I was asked to be the bus director. And I've been doing it ever since. So about 18 years I've been bus director.
Oh, amen. Thank you, because I wouldn't have been reached for the best ministry. So thank you. Okay, so let's get into a little bit of juicy questions. Who is your favorite child and why?
My favorite child. It's not Juwan. I have 3 children, and if of course, you're making me answer this question.
Yes. Okay. Truthful answers only.
All right. My favorite child would have to be my daughter.
Oh,
and,
she watching too.
Spoiler alert.
She is my only girl, and she's my firstborn. And so if I had to choose one of the 3, which you're making me choose, I'd have to say Brittany.
Okay, wow, you're lucky, Miss Brittany. Okay. Which child is most like you, and which child is most like your wife?
That's easy. My son Johnny.
Your son Johnny?
He's.
I was rooting for Click.
No, he's most like me, and my daughter is most like my wife.
If you could trade any of your kids for the opposite gender, who would it be and why?
Did Brother Ricky approve these questions?
Yeah.
He did. Okay. He actually wrote them. Is that right?
Yeah. No, this is my question. You shouldn't have said that.
That's a
weird
question.
So would you change Miss Brittany to be a boy? She's got 3 boys.
Oh
or?
yeah. Yeah, that's a good answer.
Your favorite.
And you know what's funny is Brittany is like me too. She is as much as Johnny is like his dad. Brittany's like her dad, and of course she loves the bus ministry. She taught at City Baptist for 7 years, and she loves and would be teaching even now if she didn't have a child, our first grandchild.
Grandpapa right here.
And that's right. She loves City Baptist, and she thinks like I do. And so if she were a boy, and we had 3 boys, that'd be great.
Okay, this question, it's my personal question here. Who's your favorite in-law? Your son-in-law, your daughter-in-law, or your other daughter-in-law? Brian, what's the other one name? I forgot.
Megan.
Megan. And then Clint's
I don't know
wife.
Clint's wife.
I can choose one.
Yeah.
Choose one of the 3.
One of the 3.
No, put him in, rank them 1, 2, first, second, third.
So my favorite son-in-law is Brian.
Wow.
That's your only son-in-law.
Whatever. And of course, he works here at First Baptist, does a great job. Has a lot to do with our videos. Did a great job this morning with the Easter video. Had worked all night to make that. Did a good job. And you're his one of his bus riders,
Yes.
right?
Amen.
And then Megan, of course, married to Johnny. She taught at City Baptist, teaches at City Baptist kindergarten this year. And then my son lives in North Carolina. He's married to Amber. Amber teaches at a Christian school there. They're all great. I've got great in-laws. I love them very much.
Okay, next question. Is it a hassle running City Baptist schools? And if so, what's the biggest struggle?
No, it's not a hassle. I love City Baptist. It's the joy of my life to have a part in City Baptist School. But probably the greatest struggle, and I'm just going to be honest, this is something that I didn't really, I've been part of City Baptist probably for the last 30 years, but in the role that I'm in now, only for the last 8 years. But probably the greatest struggle emotionally has been watching some of our young people not make it, not live for God, and not stay in church. And of course, we have a lot of our kids that do, but just those that don't, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And that's a struggle. And but it doesn't cause us to want to quit. We want to keep going for the Lord and for all of our young people. But that's a struggle. And then, of course, finances. I have to say, just financially trying to keep our doors open. I don't think our students quite understand the burden that our ministry carries financially for City Baptist. And that's always a great struggle, but the Lord has been so good. He has amazingly kept the doors open and through difficult times, and we praise the Lord for that.
Okay, this is a bus ministry question. What's the highest day of bus ride as you've had on your bus route?
This goes back several years. But back in the 1990s, I wanted to have a big day on my bus route. And I had about 30 bus workers on my route that year, the spring semester. And I was not bus director at the time. I was a division leader, Division 1, up on the far north side.
Amen. That's division right there.
And I asked for the young if I could annex some other area, and some area that we didn't have bus routes in. So I was going to have a big day on my route, 70-1, and then I annexed some other area, and I wanted to have a big day on my route, and then in the afternoon, with just my workers, go to another area and have some more, run more buses, bring more people to church. And that day we had 808.
Okay, be for real, how much did you have? You did not have 808.
We had 808 that day. We ran 16 buses.
6?
What?
That
was a long time ago. That was many years.
Wow. What about now?
What about now? Well, things have changed. Of course, our colleges, we don't have as many workers as we used to, and so that's certainly a challenge. But
That's good though. Can you tell us one of the craziest bus ministry stories you have? The craziest story. I want the craziest, the juiciest, the best. For the viewers. Not just for us, for the viewers.
Oh yeah, okay. The craziest bus ministry story. I wasn't prepped for that one. Did you send that to me?
No.
No, he didn't. So
That was added today.
Come back to that one.
Back to that
Okay.
question.
Let's do, if you can give one message to the teens watching, some of the City Baptist students, some of the Chicagoland teens, some of your bus kids. If you give them one message, what message would that be?
I think the message would be, number one, to do your schoolwork and stay caught up and understand that we are still in school, and it's very important. Our seniors need to graduate.
Amen.
And so Frankie and AJ, do your schoolwork so you graduate and you get your diploma. But to all of our students, we want you to do well in school academically. But then also I would say to our students and to all of our bus riders that are watching and listening online, to live for God, to serve God with your life. We need more young people to give their life to God. Just thinking about this COVID virus situation that we're dealing with, it really has opened my eyes even more so to the fact that there are so many people that are dying and lost and need the Lord. and how we need more young men, young ladies to surrender to the will of God and to serve God with their life, whether it be full-time or, whether it be as a layperson, but to live for God, to stay in church and do the will of God for their life.
Amen. That's good. So that was our last question. So we have to go back to the other question. Can you tell us one of the craziest bus ministry stories you have? The craziest. I want the craziest. You've been in the bus ministry for longer than probably my mom. You can tell me the craziest bus ministry to happen.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm struggling with that question. I don't even know where to go. I don't know how to answer that. I'm sorry.
Okay, what was the craziest encounter when you knocked on someone's door? What was the craziest encounter you had?
Boy, I'm starting to sweat right now. I don't know. I'm lost. I'm at a loss. I can't think of a good story there for that question.
Okay, I'll just ask another question then. Okay. Starting your job as the superintendent of City Baptist, was it, when you first transitioned to that role, was it like kind of a struggle? Did you feel intimidated at a point? Did you feel nervous, scared, or just? No,
actually I didn't. I was excited about the opportunity. I was grateful for the opportunity, and I love City Baptist. I love what City Baptist stands for. I love why it was started. I love the fact that we run our buses to Chicago to reach young people for the Lord, and that City Baptist is a way for them to get out of the public school, which for many of our kids is just not a good environment. There's not a good crowd, but at City Baptist, it's so much of a better crowd for them to be with, and teachers who love the Lord, that are saved, and that are in church, and that are helping guide them the right direction. And so for me, I wasn't intimidated. I was excited, and I want to see City Baptist grow. We've got young people probably that are listening. I'm hoping they'll be provoked to perhaps attend City Baptist, and we start school back in the fall. And I hope many of our kids would consider attending CB.
It's a good place to be. That's all the questions I have. If you go back to that first question about the craziest story.
About the craziest story.
Yeah, craziest story, the craziest encounter.
Yeah.
One of them.
Boy, I'm really at a loss on that one.
I'll
I'll tell you one. All right, this is a crazy story. All right, so I'll try to keep it. How much time do we have? Okay, so me and my partner were out knocking on doors, and we were just visiting our bus route, and we started on the third floor. We were visiting on Damon and Lawrence, and right by Amundsen High School. And so we were knocking on doors, one on the third floor, and there was a Muslim family that invited us in. They were very friendly, and so we went into the house, and I asked the dad. There were two teenage boys that lived in that home, and I asked the dad. I said, "Hey, we've got a Sunday school bus. Would you mind if your boys came to church?" And he said, "Yeah, that'd be great." And he asked the boys if they'd like to come, and they said, "Sure, we'd love to come." And so I thought, man, this is great. It's time 2 new riders for the bus. They were 2 teenage young men. And then I took out my New Testament, and I was going to witness to them and show them how to be saved. And I asked them, I said, "Hey guys, for sure if you died today, you'd go to heaven." And I said, "Let me take the Bible." Well, when I started reading some verses, the oldest boy, one of the boys, stopped me and said, "Hold it." He said, "We don't believe the Bible." He said, "We're Hare Krishnas." And if you know anything about Hare Krishnas, it's a kind of a way out there religion. They believe in reincarnation and different things like that. And well, I didn't push it. I said, "Well, that's fine." And I was just excited they were going to come to church. And so I left and went downstairs, knocked on the second floor, went down to the first floor. And about 15 minutes later, the boy that had told me that came down the stairs, and he stopped me. He said, "Hey, hang on a minute. I need to talk to you." And I said, "Sure, what's up?" He said, "I want to apologize for what happened upstairs." And I said, "Well, what do you mean? I mean, what's up with that?" And he said, telling you that we didn't believe the Bible. He said, "My brother and I are Christians." And I said, "Really?" And I said, "Well, why did you act the way you did upstairs?" And he said, "Well, my parents are not." He said, "If they knew that we were Christians, they would disown us." He said, "A man from your church a year ago came to my cousin's house and knocked on our door, and he took the Bible, and he showed me and my brother how to be saved." Amen. He said, "We attend Amundsen High School." And he said, "We tell our friends, we tell everybody we can about Jesus." He didn't know to call it soul winning, but that's what they were doing. And I asked him, I said, I said, why is your dad letting you and your brother come to church tomorrow? And he just kind of shrugged his shoulders. He said, I have no idea. And he came to church the next day, and he loved it. And it's kind of a strange thing. The next week I went by there, and I asked the dad, I said, hey, do you mind if the boys come to church tomorrow? And he said, sure, that's fine. I asked the boys if they would come, and they said, no, we have something to do, we can't come. And I was disappointed, and I left and went back the next week. And the dad said, sure, they can come. And the boys said, no, we've got something else to do, we can't come. Well, that went on for like 2 months. And finally, I just stopped going by there as often. And one day I was walking down the street, down Damon Avenue, right across from the high school there. And his name was, his last name, I can't remember his name now, but Nimish Patel. And Nimish was coming down the street the other direction. And I stopped him and I said, hey, Nimish, I said, how's it going? And we talked for a little bit. And I said, hey, I thought you guys were really going to start coming to church. And he said, we would love to come. He said, but my dad doesn't want to be the bad guy. And so he knows you're coming. He said, before you come, he says, he tells us that we can't go. And he doesn't want us to go to a Christian church. And so he tells us, he tells you it's okay for them to go, but then he makes us tell you that we don't want to go, we can't go. And I said, okay, I get it. I said, well, let me do this. I said, every week, we have a prayer meeting. We met with our guys there in the parking lot. I said, why don't you come by when you can? I'll give you some books and just try to help them grow in the Lord. And, several months later, and this probably 8 or 9 months later, I went back there just to check on them, see how they're doing. And the dad came to the door and I said, hey, do you mind if the boys come to church? And he said, sure, they can go, like he always would do. And I turned to the boys and I said, hey, guys, you want to come tomorrow? And they said, yeah, we'd like to come. And I was shocked, because for so long they said they couldn't come. Well, they came the next day, and they went to the teen center. And Brother Ricky would remember back in the old days, we used to meet at 700 Sibling. And Brother Lapina preached that morning. And that afternoon, I took Nimish home in the afternoon, and I said, how'd it go today? And he said, I think God spoke to my heart. He said, I think God wants me to be a preacher. And I said, well, Nimish, if God's called you, then you need to give your life to the Lord. You need to go to Bible college. He was graduating from high school, and I said to him, Nimish, why don't you come and visit House Anderson? He said, I don't know. He said, if my parents find out I'm a Christian, he said, they'll disown me. And so we worked it out. It's kind of an interesting thing. But that summer, he was working a job, and I had someone pick him up from work so his parents wouldn't know, and I took him to House Anderson. And he visited the campus, and he left that day, and he was excited, and he knew that that's what God wanted him to do. And but then when it came time for school to start, I called him and I said, hey, you gotta make a decision. It's time to register for school, and would you come? And he goes, I just can't do it. And he could not bring himself to that place where he'd have to admit to his parents that he was a Christian. And that was the last. He only came to church twice, and that was the last time he ever came to church. But that story reminds me, number one, the power of the gospel. Amen. The fact that the gospel saved him and his brother, and just the idea that if he had surrendered and given his life to the Lord, the impact that he could have had. There's people he could have won to Christ that I could never have won. He could have gone back to the country where he's from and won people to the Lord. It just disappoints me a little bit. I think of the teenagers and young people that ride our buses to church. They don't have that opposition. They don't have that challenge of parents who would disown them for being a Christian. And they've got great liberty to surrender and to give their life to the Lord. And I just hope they do. But that's one of my favorite stories that I love to share about the bus ministry.
That's good. Thank you, Brother John, for this interview. I thank you for joining us today.